In this video, we'll learn about Southwest Minnesota Arts Council's Arts in the Schools grants for fiscal year 2027, which runs from July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. The Arts in the Schools grants provide funding for arts experiences in the schools that supplement existing curricula. These grants are open to public schools and community education, and grants are available for up to $4,000. Funding comes from Minnesota's Arts and Cultural Heritage or Legacy Fund and Minnesota State General Funds. Applicant schools need to be located in Southwest Minnesota Arts Council or SMOC's service area. As long as your district has some buildings in the SMOC region and serves SMOC region students, you can still apply, even if other of your school buildings are located outside the SMOC region. Our region is made up of 18 counties and 2 tribal nations, which include Pipestone, Chanchayapi or Lower Sioux, Chippewa, Cottonwood, Jackson, Candy, Ojai, Lac-Qui-Parle, Lincoln, Lyon, McLeod, Meeker, Murray, Nobles, Pashutazizi or Upper Sioux, Pipestone, Redwood, Renville, Rock, Swift, and Yellow Medicine. We acknowledge that the Southwest Minnesota region occupies the traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of the Dakota people. There are several different types of projects that you could do. You could have an artist residency where you're bringing a professional artist into the school to work in depth with students. Arts field trips to art galleries or professional performances. Juried student art exhibits. And music festivals. If your school or community ed is instead doing a community-focused project, for instance, summer children's theater, see our art project or quick support for organizations grants. There is a resource available for finding artists to do residencies called Compass. You can visit their website to find Minnesota teaching artists. On the website, you can search for their art form, the participant age that they generally work with, and program type, and you can book artists directly through the site. Some project requirements include that the activity needs to be open to all students within a grade, subject, discipline, or activity, rather than exclusive to specific students selected by teachers. Projects can take place during the school year or the summer, though summer activities should be limited to or focused on enrolled students. Again, if activities are focused on the wider community, look at our grants for organizations. You're also required to have some sort of community sharing component, such as inviting the community to an exhibit of the work students completed during the residency or a sharing of field trip experiences, maybe a meet the artist night or a class that's open to community members. The following activities are not eligible for these grants: requests from parochial schools or religious socialization of the participants or audience, since we are using state funds for these grants. Payment of school personnel, with the exception of paying for a substitute teacher while the regular teacher is participating in the project. Substitutions for regular school programs. If an art program has been canceled, you cannot use one of these grants to bring back similar activities. Also ineligible are supplies or equipment outside of those needed for the project. So an artist could request that students have a particular kind of scissors for their project, which would be okay to purchase with grant funds, but these grants cannot cover other unrelated equipment requests like a piano or a kiln for your school. Also ineligible are activities that take place outside of Minnesota, so any field trip sites will need to be within the state, again, because we are using state funds. Also ineligible are projects that don't have an art focus. Fundraising events, in other words, the grant funds should allow your project to break even rather than to make a profit, and you also cannot fundraise for any other cause as part of your project. Also ineligible are payments of debts incurred before the grant begins, budgets that include general contingency expenses, grant funds being used to match another SMOC grant, and applicants with a past due final report still outstanding. There are monthly deadlines for this program on the first of the month, starting August 2026 and running through May of 2027. And the earliest date that you could start your project would be the first day of the following month. As an example, an application submitted on August 10th would be in time for the September 1st deadline, which would then have an earliest project start date of October 1st. The SMOC board would make funding decisions on September 22nd, the fourth Tuesday, and then you would be notified within a few days following the board meeting and could start your project on October 1st. Also note that our submission cutoff on the deadline is now 11:59 p.m., which is later than it previously was, so you have more time now to complete and submit your application on the day of the deadline. You'll need to choose a start date and an end date for your project. In choosing your start date, make sure to check for the earliest allowed start date for that round, because you cannot start any project activities before that date. And activities would include things like ordering supplies, holding auditions or rehearsals, any public notification or advertising, any payments to the artist, etc. So you can't spend any funds before the start date. If there is something that you would need to spend money on before that start date, such as a deposit on a contract, you cannot include that amount in the grant project budget. In choosing your project end date, make sure to give yourself plenty of time to both complete and evaluate the project. And projects that are awarded this year in fiscal year 2027 need to be finished up by June 30th of 2028. In preparing to fill out your application, these are the kinds of questions you'll need to answer and materials you'll need to gather. You'll need a description of your project activities, including which students are participating, such as which school building, grade level, or class subject, dates and schedules of the activities. If there are participation fees, how will the activity be made accessible to all students, and what your community sharing component will be. You'll also need to describe the artist or arts institutions that are going to be involved in your project, along with your rationale for choosing them. Depending on the type of project you're doing, you may need to provide artist resumes or bios, work samples, and sample lesson plans. A few more application questions include your proposed project outcomes and an evaluation plan, estimated audience numbers, an itemized budget, some school data and demographics, and contact information for a project director and authorizing official. As you're working on your application, we suggest that you do not use AI in your writing process. It's important that you write in your own words, since you're the one that knows your project details, which are more important than writing style. You'll need to have 2 people connected with your application: a project director, who will be the person most directly responsible for the day-to-day activities of the project, and then an authorizing official, which is someone with authorizing power for your school, such as a principal or superintendent. You cannot have the same person assigned to both of these roles. You need to have 2 different people, and both will need to sign all grant documents, including the application. Here are the criteria our reviewers will use to evaluate your application. They will be looking at the artistic quality and merit of the project, worth 53% of your score, the impact on participants and audience, worth 32% of your score, and the feasibility of the project, worth 15% of your score. In more detail, for artistic quality and merit, reviewers will be looking to see if activities have high artistic merit and potential for students to develop knowledge, skills, and understanding of the arts, and whether artists or arts institutions show a high level of artistic quality and professionalism. For impact on participants, reviewers will be looking for depth of engaged student learning and age-appropriate scope, that the project enhances but not substitutes for regular school arts programs, that the activities are open and accessible, that the project includes a community component, and that you have identified the proposed changes to take place as a result of the project and included plans to evaluate the project. Finally, for ability to accomplish the project, reviewers will look to see whether you've presented a clear plan with reasonable timelines and whether the budget is clearly itemized, responsible, and meets the needs of the project. SMOC staff can offer assistance in several ways as you work on your application. First, we can talk through your project with you before you get started to make sure that you are applying under the right grant program and that your project is eligible. You also can get answers to any questions you may have as you're filling out your application. You can also have SMOC staff review your application draft. If you let us know about 2 weeks before the deadline, we can take a look at your application and let you know if you're missing anything, if there's anything the reviewers might find confusing, and just give you some general feedback. So if you have time to take advantage of that, that can be a very helpful opportunity. We also have many resources available for you on our website. You will find for each of our grant programs the guidelines and criteria, important dates, including when you will find out whether you have received a grant or not, and also application and report questions in an editable format so you can see what those involve before starting anything. We also have instructional videos available, including a tutorial on how to use the online grant system, another tutorial on how our grant process works in general, along with several grant writing related topics such as reaching underserved and underrepresented communities and putting together your grant goals and evaluation plan. There are also sample documents available on the website. You can see what a contract looks like. For organizations, there's a sample fiscal sponsor agreement. You'll also find the credit lines and logos that you may need to use in promoting your grant project. There is also the login to our online grant system, and you can find multiple ways to connect with SMOC staff. We'd like to highlight another grant that you can recommend to students who may be interested. Our Art Study Opportunity for Youth grants provide funds to young artists in grades 5 through 12 to attend arts camps or study with a mentor artist. For low-income students, they can also apply for funds for regular weekly lessons. Grants are available for up to $500 and are funded by SMOC memberships and donations. Deadlines are available monthly, the first of the month, August 2026 through May 2027. Thanks for learning about Southwest Minnesota Arts Council's grants. Please contact us with any questions or visit our website for more information.